Now, though, to ULEZ. Almost 6 months ago, London's ultra-low emission zone expanded to the Kent border. To remind you, anyone then who drives into the capital from the county now has to pay £12.50 if their vehicle isn't considered green enough. But now, half a year on, transport bosses say it has been effective at taking older, polluting vehicles off our roads. And new figures show that in the first 3 months, around 45,000 fines were issued to non-compliant vehicles in Kent, Surrey and Sussex, and 17,000 of those were in Kent. Piers Hopkirk has been assessing the impact of ULEZ in our county.
Who in Medway, maybe 20 miles from the border of London's ultra-low emissions zone? But for 6 months, the vehicle charge has put a steady squeeze on Abby Austin's cleaning business. With 70% of her customers inside the ULEZ zone, she has to soak up the daily charge of £12.50.
You've got to take on extra jobs because obviously you've got to fill, it all adds up. So if at the end of the month you're down £300, that's a big chunk of money, especially in today's climate. Making that money, it's not easy, trying to get the jobs in to cover it.
Abby's van's just 6 months too old to qualify for an exemption. A new one would set her back in the region of £20,000. On the ULEZ border at Dartford Rugby Club, the charge means some players rely on car shares to get to the club, and that, they say, leads to exclusion. Luke Stickings is the Director of Club Development.
I think it's just the way in which it impacts the people that it's designed to protect. So, parents not being able to afford to upgrade their car to lower emission vehicles means that a club like ours, right on the border of ULEZ, there's actually restricting their access to those areas.
I'm on the dividing line where the £12.50 ULEZ charge kicks in. For many businesses on the border, this is one anniversary they won't be celebrating. Ogasan Kaigasus has run this barbershop in Crayford for 16 years. But since ULEZ was expanded, he says it's trimmed more than 20% off his takings, with some customers no longer willing to cross into the charging zone.
Just get rid of the ULEZ because local businesses, especially small businesses, are hugely impacted on this case.
The ULEZ charge continues to prompt protest. Transport for London's Commissioner told the London Assembly it was achieving its aims.
This was a huge undertaking, and the initial data shows that the scheme has been highly effective at reducing the proportion and number of older, more polluting vehicles on London's roads.
Environmental campaigners say the goal of cleaner air is one that has to be pursued. This is Claire MacDonald from the campaign group Mums for Lungs.
I think it's really difficult to see air quality, and that's part of the problem. But what we do know is that 80,000 of London's most polluting cars have been taken off the street, and that will inevitably have a positive impact.
6 months on, the ULEZ expansion and its charging system remains controversial. Its impact felt far beyond the capital. Piers Hopkirk, BBC Radio Kent.
I wonder what you make of that. How do you feel about ULEZ then, 6 months into it? I know there was a lot of opposition to start. Maybe hearing that, has it changed your mind? We'll talk to someone else actually from that campaign group. Piers was talking about Mums for Lungs in just a moment. First though, let's talk to Dawn from Beckenham, who helps run the Women's Anti-ULEZ group and joins us. Dawn, thank you for being here. First of all, why a specific women's Anti-ULEZ group?
Right, first of all, good morning, Anna.
Morning.
Specifically for women, the group was set up about in April of last year. When the ULEZ expansion came in, you had women that were travelling alone on London transport and overground late at night. So what we did was we had a group of women that were eager to be at any protests that we were going to, but they were scared about travelling on the trains or buses on their own. So what we did was we set up a group that was specifically for women. And what we did, we tried to buddy people up. So people were never alone. They always had someone. Sadiq Khan, ULEZ made a hash of everything. We couldn't take our cars into London, so we had to rely on unreliable public transport.
So essentially you're saying that you would feel safer if you were able to drive in your vehicle, but because of the cost, if it's £12.50 each time, it's not affordable. Therefore, you're on public transport on your own and you don't feel safe.
Exactly. That is exactly what we set this women's group up for originally. But again, it's taken on a new life of its own, and we've become a force to be reckoned with, to be quite honest with you.
Wow. And what about the scrappage scheme? Because, I mean, obviously the Mayor of London isn't here, but if he was, he'd say, well, there's a scheme, isn't there, to help people get new, cleaner vehicles?
Well, my husband has a non-compliant van that he uses for work. I've got friends that have applied for the scrappage scheme. They've applied. They've been told, yes, go ahead, scrap your car, we'll send you the money, and the money doesn't come through. One of my friends actually had her cheque bounced. Well, they said they cancelled it, basically. And another friend of mine, his cheque for his was cancelled for his van. So they were all out of pocket. As I say, both of them were really concerned about how they were going to get their money, and they had to go back and chase TfL to get some kind of answer to why their car and van had been refused or had originally been accepted, but then the checks hadn't come through.
They should keep chasing that, yeah, because I'm sure it will be rectified if they keep chasing it. And what are some of your members telling...
Oh, sorry, go on.
It's all right. I was going to say, what are some of your members telling you? Because it's 6 months now, obviously, since it came in. How is the group feeling?
Still very, very, very angry. Sadiq Khan brought this in under false pretences. He's continuously lied about it. He won't release data on figures that are going on. Air pollution, dust and mould. You've got mouldy houses. Why is this not actually being counted in sort of like the pollution levels? Nothing is about specifically vehicle pollution.
It's an interesting one, Dawn, and actually, a lot of people are pointing the finger at other forms of transport, flying, taking the tube, etc., etc. Listen, Dawn, brilliant to talk to you, and obviously please keep in touch with us here at the Wake Up Call. As you say, your group has taken on a life of its own, so many supporters. Dawn then from Beckenham runs the women's Anti-ULEZ group. I mentioned the Mayor of London is not here to defend himself. We again asked him obviously to come on the show, but we have a statement instead. The decision to expand the ultra-low emission zone London-wide was not an easy one, but necessary to tackle toxic air pollution. For those living outside the capital, the Mayor continues to call on the government to further support the switch to cleaner vehicles through funding a targeted national scrappage scheme or providing additional funding to the home counties, i.e. he would like it if central government paid for us here in Kent to be party to some kind of scrappage scheme, which, as you know, isn't the case at the moment. Let's now turn to Jemima Hartshorn from Mums for Lungs. Welcome to the Wake Up Call. Thank you for being here. Can we start actually by addressing one of the points that Dawn made? She was saying it's very, very difficult for one to measure air pollution, and for two, well, what about all the other, like log burning stoves and aeroplanes and things like that? I mean, is this really the right measure to bring pollution down?
Good morning. Yes, well, the thing is, across London we have over 1,000 air pollution monitors, and we know that the biggest individual source within London of nitrogen dioxide pollution, which is a gas that inflames lungs and really contributes to asthma, comes out of the exhaust of diesel cars and diesel vehicles. And individual diesel cars, especially the older ones, are the most polluting source of this toxic gas that we are breathing in vast amounts across London. And thankfully, due to the ULEZ and the ULEZ being London-wide, we're breathing a lot less of it. We need to put all of this in real perspective. 250,000 children in London have asthma. And we know that air pollution from driving, from road transport, from diesel vehicles is strongly contributing to this. So other sources of air pollution, as Dawn rightly said, need to be brought down as well. But we really do need to get more of the most polluting cars off the road. Yeah,
so you're saying it's not either or. You'd like it all to be looked at, really.
Yes,
but
it can't be either or. In fact, we're talking about different pollutants. You know, the thing that is the biggest problem with diesel vehicles is a gas, which inflames lungs. And the biggest thing that is the problem when we talk about wood burning is tiny, tiny particles that are so small that they lodge anywhere in our body and cause inflammation there, because our body's filtration system is not adapt to, filter out that enough. So we're talking about different pollutants here. Obviously, homes need to be sorted out as well. I mean, it's terrifying that people are living in mouldy homes. That is also wrong. But we cannot pit one pollution that is causing huge numbers of very, very bad illness, especially amongst children, against another form of pollution.
I was going to say, actually, you sort of have a vested interest to look into this because your daughter has asthma, doesn't she? And she was in hospital just 3 years old because of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So she's 4 now, but she was in hospital, admitted properly, and we stayed overnight with breathing issues, and asthma issues. And it was terrifying, and it was during a high pollution episode in London in a hot summer 1.5 years ago. And it was absolutely terrifying, and it was probably the worst week of my life with this kid that was first at home, and the nurses were coming before and after, and then the nurses came around and said, you need to take her back into A&E. She's not well enough to be at home. And, it is really scary, but 250 children across London are on inhalers and have breathing issues and have asthma, and that is a number that is far too high. That has real impact on their lives. They obviously don't go to school when they have a flare-up. They are worried. Their parents are lying awake at night. Their parents are not working when the children are ill. This has a huge cost to Londoners, these children, their families, the wider economy, their education.
What would you say, Jemima? What would you say to anyone who said, well, look, yes, but we've had asthma forever, so it's not necessarily just a car thing, and it isn't easy for you to support ULEZ because you don't own a car?
Yes, but it does also mean I'm out and about on public transport all the time, right? I'm a single mum with 2 children, and I only use public transport, so I know what the pains are of public transport as well. I obviously can't, I haven't been affected by the ULEZ in the sense that it impacted my driving because I don't drive, but I am impacted as a parent, and I speak to hundreds of parents who have children who are very, very sick and, who have all different levels of asthma and other illnesses that might be related to air pollution. So really things need to change across London, and the ULEZ has been a really good first step to make that possible, and obviously more support is needed to ensure that public transport, especially in outer London, is
final very, very quick question. How is your daughter now? Is she okay?
Yes, she's okay.
Good,
She's on a daily inhaler.
Fantastic. We'll leave it there for time reasons, but Jemima, thank you for joining us on the Wake Up Call. Jemima Hartshorn then from Mums for Lungs, explaining why she is pro-ULEZ, thinks it's a good idea to reduce pollution. We heard from Dawn before that, saying it's not good for women on their own who can't drive and have to take public transport.